On the evening of January 31st, 2026, an 84-year-old woman named Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her home in Tucson, Arizona. She had just spent the day with family. By the next morning, she was gone. No phone call, no goodbye, no trace. What followed was a search that would grip the nation, a mystery that would divide a family, and mounting evidence that would turn the spotlight directly onto the last person to see her alive, her own son-in-law. This is the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, and what investigators have uncovered since that night has left many wondering whether the truth was hiding in plain sight all along.
What is your main takeaway on this story right now? What would the FBI be looking at right now?
Good morning, ma'am. I think the priority one are these backpacks and these pieces of evidence that we've seen in that video. Likely the FBI's Phoenix division is in contact with big box stores and retailers in that area and with their corporate security offices to see exactly who may have purchased these types of items in the past several weeks, and particularly of interest if they purchased 2 or 3 things together, if they purchased a ski mask together, if they purchased a backpack together. That's going to help investigators even narrow it down.
Here is what we know about the timeline of that final evening. On Saturday, January 31st, 2026, Nancy Guthrie spent time with her family during the day. At some point that evening, between approximately 9:30 and 9:45 p.m., she was dropped off at her home. According to reports, the person who drove her home and was the last known individual to see her alive was her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni. Now, that detail alone is not necessarily suspicious. Family members drop each other off at home all the time, but what makes this significant is what happened next, or rather, what did not happen next. By the following day, Nancy could not be reached. She was not answering her phone. She was not at her home. There were no signs of a struggle reported at the residence, at least not initially. It was as though she had walked through her front door and simply evaporated. When family members grew concerned and contacted authorities, the Pima County Sheriff's Department launched what would become a sprawling investigation. The FBI was eventually brought in to assist. And from the very beginning, investigators had one critical question on their minds. What happened between 9:45 p.m. on January 31st and the moment Nancy was reported missing? That window of time, those unaccounted hours, would become the most scrutinized period of the entire investigation. As the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI began digging into the case, several pieces of information surfaced that immediately drew public attention. First, there was the vehicle of interest. Reports indicated that law enforcement was investigating a vehicle spotted near a convenience store that was in close proximity to both Tommaso Cioni and Annie's residence. The exact nature of the connection between this vehicle and Nancy's disappearance was not immediately made public, but the fact that it was flagged in the investigation raised eyebrows. Then came the ransom note rumors. In the days following Nancy's disappearance, unverified reports began circulating on social media and in certain media outlets suggesting that a ransom note had been discovered. If true, this would fundamentally change the nature of the case, shifting it from a missing persons investigation into a potential kidnapping. However, as of the latest official statements, no law enforcement agency has publicly confirmed the existence of a ransom note. The Pima County Sheriff's Office has been careful to neither confirm nor deny many of the details swirling around the case. What we do know is that as early as February 2026, both local and national media were intensely focused on Tommaso Cioni. Some commentators and media reports went so far as to call him a, quote, prime suspect, end quote. But Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos pushed back hard on that characterization. In a public statement, Sheriff Nanos labeled such claims, quote, reckless, end quote, stating that investigators had not officially labeled anyone a suspect at that time. That distinction is important. There is a massive difference between being a person of interest and being a named suspect. And as of that statement, law enforcement was drawing a clear line, even as public opinion had already made up its mind. So what exactly has fueled the speculation around Tommaso Cioni? Let us lay out the circumstantial picture that has emerged. Number 1, he was the last known person to see Nancy Guthrie alive. In any missing persons or homicide investigation, the last person to see the victim is always scrutinized heavily. This is standard procedure, not an accusation, but it places Cioni directly in the investigative spotlight. Number 2, the vehicle vehicle of interest was reportedly found near his and Annie's area of residence. While no direct link between the vehicle and Cioni has been officially confirmed, the proximity is notable and has fueled public speculation. Number 3. The timeline raises questions. Nancy was dropped off between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m. What happened in the hours that followed? Did she make it inside her home? Did anyone else visit? Were there security cameras in the area? These are the kinds of questions investigators are almost certainly pursuing, and the fact that Cioni controlled the last known moments of her evening makes his account critical. Number 4. The broader pattern of information, or rather misinformation, surrounding the case has created a fog that is difficult to see through. As of early February 2026, the case involved significant, often contradictory information from various sources. Some of those contradictions appeared to involve details about Cioni's movements and statements. Now, it is absolutely essential to note that none of this constitutes proof of guilt. Circumstantial evidence, even when it piles up, is not the same as a conviction. Tommaso Cioni has not been arrested, he has not been charged, and as of the latest reports, he has not been officially named as a suspect by the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI. But the court of public opinion operates by a different set of rules, and in that court, Cioni has already been placed on trial. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of this case is what it has done to the Guthrie family. As media attention intensified and speculation about Cioni grew, reports emerged that family members and associates had become deeply divided over the focus on him. Some family members publicly disputed the narrative forming around Cioni, calling the rumors, quote, untrue, end quote, and quote, toxic, end quote. This is a dynamic that plays out in many high-profile disappearance cases. When someone vanishes, the family is left in a state of agonizing uncertainty. They do not know if their loved one is alive or dead. They do not know if the person sitting across from them at the dinner table might be responsible. And when the media and the public begin pointing fingers, it tears families apart in ways that are almost impossible to repair. For the Guthrie family, this division has played out publicly, on social media, in news reports, and in the comment sections of every article written about the case. Some believe Cioni is being unfairly targeted. Others believe the evidence speaks for itself. The truth, as it so often does, likely lies somewhere in between. But until law enforcement provides definitive answers, this family remains trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. As of late February 2026, the search for Nancy Guthrie continues. The FBI remains actively involved in the investigation alongside the Pima County Sheriff's Department. The case has generated national media coverage, with outlets from coast to coast covering the story and the growing speculation surrounding Cioni. Sheriff Chris Nanos has urged the public to be cautious about the information they consume and share regarding this case. His warning about, quote, reckless, end quote, speculation was not just directed at the media, but at the thousands of armchair detectives who have taken to social media to share theories, analyze timelines, and in some cases, spread outright misinformation. The initial viral reports that circulated in early February 2026 were later found to contain conflicting, unverified, and in some cases, flatly incorrect information. This is a reminder that in the age of social media, the truth can get buried under an avalanche of speculation before investigators even have a chance to build their case. What we know for certain is this: Nancy Guthrie, an 84-year-old woman from Tucson, Arizona, has not been seen since the evening of January 31st, 2026. Her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, was the last person to see her alive. A vehicle of interest was found near his area, and the investigation is ongoing. Everything else, the ransom note, the prime suspect label, the family accusations, all of that remains in the category of unconfirmed. And in a case this serious, the distinction between confirmed and unconfirmed can mean the difference between justice and injustice. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is one of those cases that keeps you up at night. An elderly woman, a quiet evening, a family gathering, and then nothing. The evidence that has surfaced so far paints a troubling picture, but it is not yet a complete one. Tommaso Cioni remains at the center of public speculation, but until law enforcement makes an official determination, we have to be careful about the conclusions we draw. What we can do is keep Nancy's name in the spotlight, because somewhere out there, someone knows something. And sometimes all it takes is one person coming forward to crack a case wide open. If you have any information about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI immediately. Even the smallest detail could make a difference. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we are going to be following this case closely. When new developments break, you will hear about them here first. Stay safe out there. And never forget, the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep someone tries to bury it.